Okay, we're ready. You're live.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us all here today, and I appreciate you joining with us as we navigate this initial meeting for the Chiefs Advisory Committee in a little different format than I think we envisioned when we started having the discussion about the formulation of our advisory committee. So I appreciate all of you being flexible and adaptable so that we can all come together virtually here today for our first meeting. So I want to welcome everyone to the meeting, and I just had some words I wanted to share for the group. Good evening. I am Chief Justin Pice. I want to begin our meeting by expressing my gratitude for the individuals and groups that made our meeting today possible. I want to thank our community first for coming together and bringing to the forefront the crucial conversations that have resulted in our City Council passing Resolutions 37-20 and Resolution 41-20. I want to thank our community for their continued support of our Dublin Police Department and our membership. I also want to thank the members of City Council, City Manager Dana McDaniel, for their vision, effort, and commitment to establishing the Community Task Force and the Chiefs Advisory Committee. I want to recognize and thank our department members for the exceptional work they perform every day to ensure our mission of protection, service, and public safety in partnership with our community, and their eagerness to engage in discussions with the Chiefs Advisory Committee and with our community members. And finally, I want to thank and welcome the newly appointed members of our Chiefs Advisory Committee for your partnership on this new initiative and your eagerness to continue important conversations with our department and for our community. I'm excited and anxious to begin our journey together and to continue to build upon the exceptional relationship our department shares with our community, which we protect and serve. So welcome to everyone. And I just want to thank you again for joining us in this meeting today and this new journey in this partnership as a Chiefs Advisory Committee. So the first piece I wanted to share, we have the agenda on the platform today. So I just want to keep that up there for just a moment and walk through what we're going to talk about today. My hope is to review the resolution as passed by City Council and talk about the Chiefs Advisory Committee purpose, intentions, and structure, reporting requirements, and have a brief discussion about the chair and vice chair requirements embedded in the resolution. And then I want to move on to what I hope the bulk of our conversation will be today is the introduction of our committee members, introduction on their personal introduction and background, your goals and expectations, your desired outcomes and recommendations you have as we move forward as a Chiefs Advisory Committee together. And then as we get to the back half of the meeting, what I would hope to do is share a little bit of information as overview about our department, our organizational structure, our mission statement and core values, our department goals for 2020, and then share a little information on how you can get some additional information after the meeting for both the public and the members of the advisory committee from our department website. At the end, we'll take public commentary we have received leading up to the meeting or during the meeting, as the meeting is being broadcast on our website, and we will share that information we collect from public commentary at the end of the meeting. And then at the final conclusion of the meeting, as we talk about future projections of conversations, a couple of documents that I thought would be beneficial for us to just discuss briefly and figure out how we bring back to the table in conversation in future meetings. So that's our overview of our agenda today. Jay, if you don't mind, if you can pull up now the review or the resolution so we can review the resolution together. Director Somerville is going to be helping navigate the agenda, so I appreciate your patience as we move through some of these documents. So as most of the committee is aware, as all of the committee is aware, the resolution that was passed August 21st by Dublin City Council, Resolution 41-20, is a resolution establishing a community task force and Chiefs Advisory Committee to assist and advise on combating and prohibiting social injustice, inequity, intolerance, negative stereotyping, and discrimination. Some of the pieces, and I won't go through the entire resolution today, but I want to highlight the pieces that are pertinent to our formation of the Chiefs Advisory Committee and help inform our discussions, at least today, but also in the future. Jay, if you'll move down to the bottom of the document, sorry there, whereas resolution right there. Whereas Resolution 37-20 directs the Chief of Police to establish and support a Chiefs Advisory Committee to provide opportunity for proactive community engagement and critical dialogue concerning the protection, service, and public safety needs for the City of Dublin, and valued advice, perspective, recommendations, and feedback on significant police-community relations issues. So that was the formalization of our advisory committee through the enactment of this resolution August 21st. Jay, if you'll move forward to page 5. And I'm sorry, page 4, if you can. I apologize. Under purpose, which is bullet E of the resolution under this section, is to the purpose is to establish an opportunity for proactive community engagement and critical dialogue concerning the protection, service, and public safety needs for the City of Dublin as provided by the Dublin Police Department. As far as duties and functions, the Chiefs Advisory Committee will meet with the Chief of Police as well as the Dublin Police Department executive staff and other members of the police department as deemed appropriate by the Chief of Police to provide valued advice, perspective, recommendations, and feedback on significant police community relations issues. Additionally, the Chiefs Advisory Committee is built to assist the police department with aligning its mission and goals with community expectations by conducting research, soliciting community feedback about the department, reviewing policies, procedures, and training requirements, and making recommendations regarding the department's efforts and community outreach and engagement. The Chiefs Advisory Committee emphasizes cooperative efforts between the community and the police department to identify and recommend solutions to issues of significant community concern, including the defeat of social injustice, bias, bigotry, inequity, and racism in the community. The last couple pieces I want to talk about and highlight from the resolution itself relate to the reporting requirement and the reporting requirements and the establishment of a chair and vice chair for the Chiefs Advisory Committee. So for reporting requirements, the Chiefs Advisory Committee will at minimum submit to the city manager and city council a semi-annual update as to its progress, findings, recommendations, and associated actions of the advisory committee, unless more frequent updates are necessary as determined by the city manager, city council, chair of the Chiefs Advisory Committee, or the chief of police. And finally, the last piece I want to cover relates to the establishment of a chair and vice chair for the Chiefs Advisory Committee. And Jay, I believe it begins on page 3 of the document and then continues on to the 4th page. And I just want to have this discussion or have this awareness for the group on one other component that's included in the resolution as a requirement of the enactment of the Chiefs Advisory Committee, that being the establishment of a chair and vice chair. The Chiefs Advisory Committee will elect from its appointed membership and no later than its 3rd meeting, a chair whose duties it will be to coordinate meeting agendas and advisory committee support with the assistance of the Chief of Police, preside over meetings, and serve as the spokesperson for the Chiefs Advisory Committee. And then second, a vice chair whose duty it will be to serve in the absence of the chair. So those are the requirements I wanted to just highlight as we begin our discussions today. And again, I want to thank Dublin City Council and the City Manager, Dana McDaniel, for their effort and commitment to establishing both the Community Task Force and the Chiefs Advisory Committee. So absent any questions, what I would like to do now is move into introductions of our formal advisory committee. So just so I don't catch anybody off guard as we move through, and it's hard to navigate sometimes in a virtual format, what number you're seeing of people in front of you and the names of everyone who is involved in the committee. What I'm going to do is take from the resolution and begin at the top of the names from the appointed committee members and then work our way down just to give everybody an idea of how we'll move through our introductions. So that, with that being said, it's my pleasure to introduce Judge Dwayne Maynard.
Okay. Good evening, Chief, and good evening to all the new members of the Chiefs Advisory Committee. In the resolution, it says my name is Judge Dwayne Maynard. Actually, my mom and dad named me William. So I go by W. Dwayne Maynard. I would like to start by thanking City Council as well, Chief, for taking the initiative to put together an advisory committee like this that gives us, as part of the community, the opportunity to interact with you and the department, and hopefully build stronger relationships with all segments of the community. By way of background, I am a Dublin resident now for 22 years. My wife and I moved out here in 1998. She is an educator in the Dublin school system. We have two grown children now, both who have followed their mother's path into education. Our oldest works with autistic kids in the Southwestern School District, and our youngest, our son, works in the Olentangy school system as a high school math teacher. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be on this panel because I obviously am an African-American male in America and in the city of Dublin. And I have had wonderful educational opportunities that allowed me to go from inner city public schooling in Cleveland, Ohio, to private school education in Gates Mills, Ohio, to Ivy League education at Brown University, to law school graduation from The Ohio State University, and then employment opportunity with the Columbus City Attorney's Office when Greg Lasheka was mayor of the city of Columbus and Ron O'Brien was the city attorney. And then I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to first be appointed by then Governor Voinovich to the Franklin County Municipal Court, and later elected by the citizens of Franklin County in 1993, 1999, and 2005. I was unsuccessful in my election bid in 2011, but then had the opportunity to go to work for then Governor Mike DeWine in the Attorney General's office, first in the crime victims section, and then in the criminal justice litigation corrections section. So I've had the opportunity to work with law enforcement from the beginning of my career through the end of my public service career, because I am enjoying retirement right now. But I think I've had the unique opportunity as a Black man in America to work with law enforcement, be a law enforcement sort of guy, and be a fan of law enforcement in general. That being said, we are in unprecedented times. It's hard to believe that it was late May when the George Floyd incident happened that led to the creation of this new advisory committee. And even before we could get here, we had the Jacob Blake incident, which was unfortunate because, while we were even trying to get to the point where we could do positive work, we had something else that happened that just seemed to be a setback. And I want to maintain a positive energy because I do believe that there is a lot of good work that is being done by our Dublin Police Department. But I am not naive enough to believe that there aren't issues that need to be addressed, particularly as it relates to the African American community, because with the African American community or Black community, and with respect to men of color generally, I think that at best the relationship with law enforcement is skeptical, if not leery, if not fearful. And I don't want that to be the case. I don't believe the chief wants that to be the case. And I hope as a committee we can have candid conversations, which I think sometimes might be uncomfortable conversations, where we can get at some of the issues that need to be addressed so that the people in all segments of the Dublin community feel that law enforcement is there to protect and serve, as opposed to feeling marginalized or harassed or any of those negative things about interactions with law enforcement. So with that in mind, I'm hoping to work with all of you all and the chief and the department in proactive efforts to not only earn the community's trust, but build it and just help, hopefully be a bridge to help in that effort, and also to learn more about each of your communities within the Dublin community, so that we can build stronger relationships amongst all of the minority communities, so that we understand the nuances and the differences in all of our communities. So that's my intro, and I don't know how many minutes it was, but hopefully it was within the time parameters that you anticipated.
No, thank you very much for starting us off, Judge Maynard. I greatly appreciate it. I want to thank you again for joining us. I think, your experience, and certainly the experience of every member of this group, is something we were very hopeful and certainly grateful for all of you to come together and help have us have these conversations. And you're absolutely right. You couldn't be more spot on what our hope and intention is that we want to build faith and trust and confidence in our services as a police department to this community, and anybody who comes and visits our community, for everyone to have that faith and trust and confidence. And that's the goal. And so thank you again for so eloquently sharing what your desire and perspective is, and I appreciate it.
Well, and you made a very important point too, Chief, that I wanted to just follow up on, and I had meant to mention it before too, is that the perceptions are not only those of people within the community, but people who come into the community. And we definitely want to be in a position to say to anyone that comes to visit, or anyone who wants to come and is thinking about doing business in Dublin or moving to Dublin, to say we have a very good working relationship, not only with city government, but with the police department. So thanks, Chief.
Yep, thank you again, Judge. Okay, moving down the list from the resolution, it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Ajmiri Hawk.
Good evening. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Ajmiri. I have been living in Dublin since 2003 took a 3-year break in there, but then came back and came back to Dublin. But I am really excited and to be a part of this group. I think that this group can really achieve great things if we come together and share our experiences, and then also really delve deep into the policing of Dublin, the Dublin community, and which is what we are trying to do. We want to make sure that the policing is fair and just, and also it's equal for everyone. And I'm hopeful that during these meetings, we can look at some of the policies as stated in the resolution and go through some of these policies, go through what Dublin Police Department has done and maybe what can be improved on, maybe any sort of racial bias training, any sort of anti-racism training, systemic bias, just all of these issues that really need to be addressed. And, you know, just like what Judge Maynard was saying, that we haven't even come together, and from June, and so many other incidences have happened across the country, but not just across the country. In Dublin, it's been a little heated the last couple of weeks with our schools and our children. And we also have to make sure that our SROs are aware of these issues and how our students feel when they go to these schools and they interact with the SROs, school resource officer, for anyone who needs to know. And you know, I hope to be a big part of it because my background, my professional background is that I'm an attorney. I was a prosecutor for 2.5 years, and I have been a criminal defense attorney since then for several years now. And part of my job as a criminal defense attorney is that I actually work with a lot of juveniles in the juvenile criminal justice system. And then I also do a lot of guardian ad litem work with foster kids. And we have those in Dublin, and we have to make sure that those kids are also attended to, not just the ones that come from a privileged background, but the ones that really need our help. And then also making sure that we look at policies and procedures that deal with ableism, differently abled people, and how our police department can help them and how we can as a community help them. So I'm hopeful that, you know, this advisory committee can address all of these issues. It's going to be a long time. It's not going to happen in 1 or 2 meetings, but this is something that really needs to be talked about and discussed in great detail. This is going to cause uncomfortableness amongst us, and we all need to just kind of dwell in that uncomfortableness, because that is really what's going to push us through. If we can all just be uncomfortable in these discussions and understand why the other side is saying what they're saying, and also hearing them, right? We don't want to just sit there and wait for our turn to say something. We want to make sure we're actually hearing each other. So, and I hope that the community members can give us their suggestions, because that's where the true change is going to come from. We're just here to help our community members. We're here as a volunteer. I'm here as a volunteer because I think that I need to help them with their voices. And if they come to me and tell me that there's something wrong, I want to bring that to the table. So I really look forward to community engagement, because that's going to be a key part of this. But that's all I have. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. I really appreciate it. And you and I had a chance to talk leading up to the meeting, and you highlighted what struck me when we had that conversation as well. You bring a great deal of wealth and experience in your professional background that I think are going to be fantastic for our discussions, but your passion for sharing the perspective and voice of young people in Dublin was something that certainly I walked away from our conversation with, and you make a great point that you know, our job here is to hear from all members of our community. And so I appreciate your desire to channel that conversation and facilitate that conversation for us with community members. So thank you again. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Srikanth Kadam, and appreciate you joining us today. And I'll let you share your background.
Thank you, Chief. By the way, I'm a doctor, but not a human doctor. I'm a business doctor. So I just want to make sure if anyone gets sick, don't call me. If you have any business issues, definitely. First of all, thank you, Chief, and for the opportunity to serve on this board. I'll definitely hope that we can. Dublin is one of the best policing, but I think there will be some improvements, and we'll work as a group and just to get different perspectives. and also reaching out to the community. By the way, I reached out to the community before I joined the meeting. I talked to my 11-year-old and asked her, what is the one recommendation I'm going to this meeting? She said, just make sure this diversity training and all this stuff, police gets a training. But anyway, that's that's just for feedback. Just a 11-year-old, I think they give from the heart. So I was surprised with the answer, but I think I just wanted to share with you guys. I've been living in Dublin for the last 17 years. I have a business. I'm a founder and CEO of ERP Group, which is headquartered in Dublin, and we do business in 39 different states and the Caribbean. I have 2 children, 11 and 15, who go to Dublin schools as well. Last year, we initiated a scholarship fund for police and firefighters specific to Dublin, and we successfully sponsored 10 kids and 2,500 each, and we are planning to do 15 this year. And the beauty about that is we are involving. I'm coaching the young kids from high school, and they are running the show. I mean, just they're meeting with the police, firefighters, and just with the community, and just teaching them the entrepreneurial skills and from the young age, what it takes to even to collect $10, how to sell your vision. So it's basically a good learning experience for them, and also I'm learning as well along with them, and how to manage financials, entire business, different business perspective, operations, finance, sales, marketing, all aspects of the business. So that's one thing from my side I'm trying to do, and just learn in the process. Again, I'm honored to be here, and just I will do whatever I can to make a better community.
Thank you, Shrey. I really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing that personal anecdote as well, too, from, I think that what's important as we move forward is that what we do in protection and service to the community is personal at a lot of levels. It's personal for us from our perspective of our desire to take care of this community, and certainly everything that we do has a personal impact on members of our community that we have contact with, that we protect, that we serve. So I think it's important as we continue to have conversations that we remember that all of these conversations, whether they're about policy, whether they're about incidents that have happened, whether they're about progressions for development of our organization, all of it is personal. And so I think that the opportunities where we can reflect how it impacts us as members of this advisory committee, or how it has impacted members that we're connected to in the community, I think is so important. So thank you again. Appreciate it. Next, I'd like to introduce somebody I got to meet as part of these ongoing conversations and been very grateful to have made connection to. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Cameron Justice.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Cameron Justice. You can call me Cam. I grew up in Dublin. Proud Kaufman graduate in 2016. I spent my entire childhood in Dublin. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've had to be involved in the community. I'm currently at Ohio State. I'm a 5th-year social work student. And first, before I get into anything else about my expectations, I just want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to be here, as well as to really start this dialogue and hopefully go about making some positive change. I love talking about this stuff, but what I love even more is making some inroads to actual change. And echoing most of your sentiments, it's going to be uncomfortable, and I think those are things that make us grow and make us better, and will make this community better. And I also want to echo Judge Maynard's sentiments about how great this police department is as a whole. And I've mentioned to Chief Paez a couple of times that, I would be doing a disservice if I weren't trying to push you to be better with as amazing as you all are. And, there's still tons of work to be done to better this department, and hopefully be a shining light for the rest of the communities around us. So with that in mind, there are just a handful of things that I really want to take a look at and am excited about. And the first is sort of what Judge Maynard mentioned about considering how the police department interacts both with Dublin residents as well as folks that come from outside of this community, because perception plays a large role in policing interactions, as well as a means to measure police trust and relations for communities that are most impacted by policing. And then finally, I sort of want to bridge a gap between the young people in our community and the adults. Being the youngest person on this committee, I really want to take the opportunity to hopefully give a voice to young people's experience. Also, given the work that I do outside of school and outside of my community work, I work with young people in Dublin and around Franklin County. So I really want to take the opportunity to hopefully bridge that gap because I've understood over the years that the youth voice is extremely important. So I look forward to working with you all, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Cam. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad you highlighted something that you and I have talked about at great length over the last several months. Your desire to push us and to challenge us comes from a very good place. And while we feel like we have done a good job of trying to push ourselves and progress as an organization, it's always good to invite outside perspective for the things that we may have missed or haven't quite considered yet. Or maybe things that help us give us a nuance of perspective that push us in the absolute right direction we needed to finish what we were trying to achieve, even if it was our own initiative. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I just want to reflect to the group that as we move forward in discussion, it's perfectly okay for every member of this committee to question, to challenge, and to ask for things that we want to achieve as well as an organization. So thank you again, Cameron. I appreciate it. Next, again, my pleasure to introduce somebody who we've worked with for some time now, who has been a great advocate and partner for the police department. And it's my pleasure to introduce Miss Yanling Yin.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Chief. My name is Yanling Yin. I am a leadership coach as well as a technology leader in JP Morgan Chase. I have been living in Dublin for 15 years. And I also have a lot of interaction with the Dublin Police Department as well as the city of Dublin. My first interaction with the Dublin Police is probably about 10 years ago when our kids were still young. We were having a party in Avery Park. And of course, the kids, they will do everything. They trigger the 911 call and we were like, oh my God, we're in trouble. But a gentleman came in and we just kind of really nervously told him that, oh, we made a mistake. There's nothing going on here. And we thought we would be in trouble, but instead, he actually gave our kids, including the adults, kind of a tour into his patrol car with all the electronics, all that. And that's really opened my eyes on the law enforcement, how they work with the community, because that's very different where I grew up in China 40 some years ago. So after that, in 2015, I joined the Dublin Police Academy, a citizen academy, and went through that training program, learned a lot, learned a ton, and also went through the, what do you call that, patrol ride, and go with the officer and saw how they interact with people. I'm really appreciative on everything they do. And ever since after I graduated, I actually went back to the department, work with Officer Kiefer on some of the police training, act as a community panelist, and really introduce our culture to the police to be, and let them know what might be the difference. When we are not having eye contact, it doesn't mean that we are criminal. It just we're not used to have eye contact, things like that, right? And so we also had some interaction through my other nonprofit organization, APAPA. I used to be a board member in that organization. We rent the room for our internship training, all that. So a lot of interaction with some of the community officers, Officer Scott, Officer Nelson, Nixon. So what I want from this is I am really passionate about humanity, about equality. And even though my community may not be having those experiences, but in my view is not all police officers are acting like that, right? I don't think we can stereotype all the police department is behaving that way. And I also think, like everybody just mentioned, there always be room for us to work together to improve. We are all work in progress. So for that, I want to bridge the gap between my community and the city of Dublin police. And we actually had some community event last year, I think. And I am really touched by how much effort the city put into the communications. They actually had the flyer in both Chinese and English. And I was able to share that with my community. And we had people go into the Dublin Police Department. We had a tour, and we toured the building as well as what they do, and we had a presentation. So those are the things that I want to help bridge the communication. How do we build a united front so that we are here to build a better community, a better culture, and that's what I want to help to contribute to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hin. You highlight some great points that we've talked about already, and others have shared. But that connectivity is a benefit for both the organization here at the police department to be able to share information we want our community members to be aware of and comfortable with, but also for us to learn more in depth about the community members that we serve here in Dublin and connected to Dublin. So all of the work that you have done are great examples of what we hope, or I hope, and all of us hope we are going to accomplish as we move forward together as an advisory committee. So thank you very much. And speaking of connectivity to the community and services in the community, it's my pleasure to introduce somebody who has been a great resource for us here at the police department, and a member of an organization that is a great resource here in the city of Dublin. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Susan Ortega.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. It is definitely wonderful to see a lot of familiar faces and to see a lot of new faces here this evening. So I echo everything that everyone has already said. I'm extremely excited to be here. I will make a quick side note. Cam, we need you to graduate real quick because we definitely need more folks, all the people we can get helping in the field. As Chief mentioned, I am with Sentaro. For those who aren't familiar, Sentaro has been serving the community for over 42 years with mental health and substance use prevention and treatment services. Myself, my husband and I, and our young son, we do live in Dublin as well. And so that was another wonderful connection that I was excited to make when I was asked to be a part of this committee as well. I have been in clinical social work for over a decade, ranging from anything working in residential treatment facilities to now working more so in prevention. And so specifically my role right now with Sentaro, I oversee the school-based services that we provide, both mental health and substance use prevention in our Franklin County school districts, and a handful of other programs. I also help to oversee our strategic priorities surrounding suicide prevention, as well as diversity and inclusion. So I am thrilled, like I said, to be partnering again with the department. Everyone that I have had the opportunity to interact with is willing to dig into tough conversations, to uncomfortable topics, to things that some folks would rather not talk about. And I have only, through trainings and meetings and whatnot, have only seen people who are willing to dig in, like I said. And so I am extremely excited to have this opportunity through my work with the schools, the teams that are there. I also have to say, someone mentioned the SROs, the student resource officers are phenomenal that we've interacted with. And it's so heartening to see when we have a student who is struggling with even potentially suicidal ideation, and especially if a family has had interactions with the police in prior that have not gone well. They are really quite afraid when we do need to get law enforcement involved sometimes because of safety concerns. And so to be able to have officers who are willing to build that relationship, willing to take the time to reach out so that families can get the services that they need for their safety and security is just, it's vital. And I'm thrilled to be a part of this community. I'm thrilled to be a part of this committee, and I'm really excited to see what happens as we continue our discussions.
Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate it. And my hope is that as we talk a little bit at the back of the meeting today about our goals and things that you have assisted us with, starting down the path on, it's one thing for us to project and decide we want to, as an organization, have a greater impact in this field, and our talks about mental health awareness and resiliency for the community are a great example. It's quite another for us to be able to connect to the right resources who can help us accomplish those goals and objectives as an organization. So I look forward to, again, continuing our efforts together and our involvement of all the members of the committee as we move towards those goals in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's my pleasure to introduce somebody again who has partnered with us for recruiting efforts in the past and giving us some perspective as an organization and connectivity to communities both internally within the city, but also communities in the Columbus area. And so it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Imran Malik.
Thank you, Chief, for that kind introduction, and I'm very glad to be here, part of a lot of great leaders and community members who have worked in certain capacities. Some of you folks, we have kind of shared common goals and common platforms together. So thank you, and I look forward to this opportunity to build myself as well as become an agent of value add. I myself, my professional background is in telecom engineering as well as real estate investment. We have 3 kids, one who recently graduated from Scioto High School and started Ohio State University. And the other 2, one of them is a freshman, actually a sophomore in Scioto Dublin, and the next one, she is a starter in middle school at Davis Middle School in Dublin. We have been in Columbus since '99. I started working here at CenturyLink, and that's where when we moved from Dayton, Ohio, over to Columbus. I grew up in a very small country called Bahrain. I don't know if everybody knows about it. It's in Persian Gulf, and it's a house for and a home for U.S. Air Force Base and U.S. Marine Base, and also for U.S. Naval Base. Growing up in Bahrain, I was I experienced the firsthand experiences of the first Desert Storm War that happened under with the NATO alliances and the Iraqi forces. That was back in early 90s. So I come from a very diverse and a small country. So growing up in Columbus, the comfort that I found always was there was so much diversity that is available, and Columbus overall, the Franklin County especially in general, is a melting pot of the United States, especially in the Midwest, and it is growing in population, in economical resources, and also in diversity. And having an opportunity where I picked 6 different languages when I was growing up in Bahrain. I enjoy working with people from all different backgrounds, whether it's cultural diversity, multiculturalism, or faith diversity, as well as professional diversity. I myself, as I said, professionally, I am an engineer and a entrepreneur. But in my personal and my passion, I do work a lot with the interfaith as well as the cultural communities all around Central Ohio. Currently, I sit on the Mayor Ginter's Community Relation Commission as well, and also currently working on a major project with the Columbus Bar Association and the Ohio State Law School to work on a project to build the resiliency for the Divided Community Trust initiative. Where we are currently living in very critical times, where there's a lot of systematic racialism that is coming into play and in the social media and the media in general, and also a lot of discrimination that has been historically pushed under the rug. Those kind of issues that are kind of hitting the minority communities as well as the youth, which are kind of getting overburdened with these challenges at the social level. So we are trying to build case-by-case scenarios to help the leadership of the city as well as the police departments all over Central Ohio to help fight those issues as they arise. Because we definitely don't want scenarios like Baltimore, Cleveland, Denver, Florida, and Minnesota to kind of happen in our own backyards either. So again, a lot of good work is happening all over Central Ohio, and I'm glad to be part of this initiative because I do believe that we don't want our police department to be to become irrelevant. We want our police department to be always relevant and always be important in our communities in optics. Because we have to build, being part of the larger, Dublin city, dwellings, we have to build that connectivity. And the only way to build that connectivity is through engagement, as some of my fellow team members have already kind of echoed that. It is very important that we bring the good work that the police department is doing, which often at time goes undetected and unchecked. We need to be those advocates that really bring that to light as well and have a two-way conversation, because it's very important that, the people that we are serving to, the constituents that we are working for, it's important that, we take their feedback and use that to improve, because that's the only way we can excel our programs and our services to the community that is, dependent upon our services. So I'm here to add as much value as possible. I am the Outreach and the Interfaith Director at Nur Islamic Culture Center, which is probably, I would say, the largest religious institution in the entire of Midwest, in a sense that we have 6,000 people on our mailing list, and we have 40 different ethnicities from all over the world that make our congregation. So with that much diversity, there's definitely that much feedback that can become very important part of the services that we can help to improve and improvise and enhance further. So again, I'm here in all my willingness and my passion to serve the chief and the fellow leaders of the community, and looking forward to learning from you folks as well, because I do believe that I may know only this much about the community, but from each one of us, when we kind of bring our synergies together, we can definitely add a lot of value add efforts overall. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Imran. I appreciate it. And you highlight something that I think is important to consider about the organization of this advisory committee. There is a lot of connectivity to a lot of other organizations, which really builds our capacity to be able to bring in perspective and to share ideas and to make sure we are trying to include as much as we possibly can in our considerations for how we examine policy, how we talk about protection and service and public safety for our service to the community. So thank you again for sharing all of that connectivity that you have with the other organizations, and thank you for your involvement with our advisory committee.
Thank you.
So the next name listed in the resolution, I had a chance to talk with Miss Ingram, Courtney Ingram, and I met last week, and I just want to share, I took some notes, and I just wanted to share on Courtney's behalf. I asked her to the same questions that we were discussing today, and I just wanted to make sure that I gave an opportunity for her thoughts to be shared as part of our discussions today as well. So Miss Ingram is a language arts teacher at Davis Middle School with Dublin City Schools. And so I just want to share just a few notes that she passed along. She was unable to be with us today, but certainly our hope is that she'll be able to join future meetings. So Ms. Ingram wanted to provide her perspective as an educator and as an employee of Dublin City Schools. I actually reached out to Superintendent Todd Hoadley and discussed possibilities of continuing the partnership that we have with Dublin City Schools as a component of our Chiefs Advisory Committee. And we're very fortunate that we have a couple of members on our advisory committee who are connected and very involved in Dublin City Schools as well. Additionally, Ms. Ingram wanted to talk about and hopes that we get a chance to continue to have conversation about the role of police in schools and what connections we have. And I'm very excited again to share what has been a very long relationship with Dublin City Schools, but to talk about it, frankly, with a little more perspective as we move forward and conversations continue with the community in Dublin City Schools as well. She also wanted to have us discuss at some point how our missions, values, and goals at the police department and Dublin City Schools align, and consider how they're aligned currently and how we continue to align them in the future. Do we have the same ideas and are we pointed in the same direction on the topics we discuss? She also wanted to assist in making positive connections with young kids as they grow up so that they get a feeling of gratefulness and appreciation for the protection provided from our police department. And she also wanted to have us discuss as we move along the thoughts and feelings of our youth in Dublin and our students and our residents that have things to share with us as a police department as well, and what we can do as a police department and what we can do in partnership with Dublin City Schools to continue those conversations with the youth in Dublin. So I just wanted to share Ms. Ingram's perspective, and my excitement is at having her involved in conversations as well as we move forward. So the next person I'd like to introduce again has great connectivity for us and perspective both in the community and in the central Ohio area. And so it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Isao Shoji.
Thank you, Chief, and good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be serving with every one of you, and I feel like I've already learned so much listening to what everybody had to say. I'm almost intimidated by it. Just wanted to share a little bit about who I am and my thoughts on being on this committee. I am originally a Taiwanese-born kid who was raised in Japan. I was in Japan until age 13. And as a tender-hearted 8th grader, I was transplanted to the US, not by my choice, of course, because that was my parents' decision. Got to spend 1 year in Hawaii, which most people think would be nice, but for me, it was a first year in the country where I didn't speak the language, so I don't have a whole lot of positive memory, I'm sorry to say. Around that time, my parents decided that it just was not a true American experience being in Hawaii. So they decided to go somewhere it was more real. And they chose this little town called Hilliard, Ohio. And that is where I grew up. So from age 14 until I graduated college, I guess I was a Hilliard resident. It was 3 years ago that my wife and I, along with our 2 children, they're now 7 and 5, moved to Dublin and officially became a Dublin resident. I feel like my upbringing, all in all, is very much colored by my experience as an immigrant. I grew up in Japan as an immigrant kid, even though I grew up speaking Japanese. I was a Taiwanese kid, so I was picked on quite a bit. And kids were not very nice, right? I mean, little kids oftentimes say the darndest thing, and they don't really have a filter that adults tend to have. So I experienced that part of it growing up. And then I came to the States, obviously also as an immigrant. But my experience in the US was very much a positive one. And I feel, looking back, that growing up in Hilliard, I was almost in a bubble. I mean, now this is early 90s that I was in Hilliard. I did not have really any negative experience. And looking back, I almost think that it was rather miraculous that that was the way it was. Blessed with friends, blessed with teachers, blessed with being an American kid. So I almost grew up thinking that everything was rather ideal in the Midwest until I got to, I guess, my age where I am a business owner. In fact, I would often joke that the closest I've come to getting in trouble was when I was painting the what is now a Dublin Kaufman rock. As a Hilliard kid, you go there right before a Dublin Hilliard football game and you paint that thing all blue. And I remember having to run from a police officer because he just pulled in as we were just about getting done with the painting. So that would be the closest encounter that I've had with the police, which I would even call it, not all that negative, right? But now as an adult, as a community member, I feel like I've been exposed to perhaps what is more real, things that I maybe just was almost blind to. This year certainly has brought a lot more things into focus for many of us, I think. But my business partners and I, and there's 3 of us together, we run a wealth management firm out of our office in the Arena District. We've had a few situations where expressing support for, I even hate to use the word side, because I really don't like to think of it as our side and their side. But where we as a business would get negative comments if we expressed support for the police, and we would also get a bunch of negative comments if we expressed support for what was going on in the community from the equality and racial justice standpoint. It was completely a us versus them mentality, it felt like. And there was just nowhere to stand where we could have a reasonable conversation without being looked at as the other side. And that saddens me, to say the least. This is not the America that my parents dreamt of when they came. This certainly is not the America that I experienced growing up as an Asian kid in what was then a very white Hilliard. And that certainly is not my experience living in Dublin as a Dublin resident. I'm sure many of you just recently saw or read a story about a lemonade stand in Peoria, where police officers showed up and supported the kids that I guess were getting in trouble by maybe a neighbor or neighbors. When I read that story, I thought that would be something that I could see happening in Dublin. But I also feel like I am maybe not in the majority. Hopefully I am. But perhaps there's more people than I ever thought that sees a lot more problem in this world. And I felt like I needed to learn from it. I felt like my mindset was rather simplistic. And for me as parents, for me as a member of this community, I felt that there was something that I needed to do to learn better, to understand the issues better, and to be a part of the solution as opposed to an ignorant bystander, which I felt like I was to that point. So all of that to say, my hope when all said and done is that our work will foster better communication among different constituencies, not just immigrants and non-immigrants, not just whites and non-whites, not just this or that. But we can have a role to build a community that really sees no sides, and that will lead to a better city, a better community, not just for us, but the generations that come after us. Because anything we do, all of our kids are watching. And whatever we leave behind, they're going to have to live. I certainly hope that we don't forget that perspective, and that whatever we do, we keep our eye on the ball, not just for the short term, but the long haul. I truly believe that the work that we're about to accomplish is going to make a difference, not just this year, next year. This is not just some kind of a report we turn into the city council for them to read. This is going to affect the lives of thousands and thousands of people for years to come. So with that, I will end, and I will look forward to working with you closely going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Shoji. I have to say I just applaud you for your candor and for sharing such a personal story and perspective with us, just as everyone is going to and has today. I think you make an exceptional point that there's a lot of work in front of us, and it can be daunting and seem overwhelming, but that doesn't mean we don't start working on it and we don't start communicating. As several members today have alluded to, there are some uncomfortable conversations that are going to occur. we want them to be honest, and we want to result in growth and development and positive change for all of us, for our community's sake. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Mr. Soji is also a member of the community task force, and in that way builds a connectivity to all of the conversation that's occurring in Dublin. And so I look forward to, again, being able to share how the conversations about the community at large are connected to the conversations about the police department, because as we're going to continue to talk as we move forward, everything is connected. We're all part of this community and part of this Central Ohio community collectively. And so thank you again for sharing your perspective, and I look forward to working with you. So the last member of our appointed advisory committee is another member of Dublin City Schools, and I was very happy to get connected to and have conversation with, shared exactly how passionate she is about having conversation with the police department and about our community. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Stella Villalba.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Yes, my name is Stella Villalba. I am so excited about joining this conversation, this critical conversation. Just a little bit of background. I was born in Argentina. Both of my parents are from Paraguay. I lived in Argentina until I was 11 years old. Then when, I don't know if you know this part of history, but Paraguay have the longest history of dictatorship in South America, 35 years, which is the reason why a lot of families moved to either Argentina or Brazil. When the dictatorship was close to coming to an end, so that the rumors said, my family decided that we will go back to Paraguay. And I share this part of the story because I got to, even though I was 11 years old, I remember like as if it was yesterday, we lived through the last 3 years of a dictatorship. And if anybody have experience living in that, you know that the systems, it's just all work against the people. So anybody that voice an opinion, that have a smart idea, challenge the status quo, see consequences. And sadly, the police department in Asunción, the city in Paraguay, have to follow the orders of a dictator that was absolutely awful. And as a little girl, I remember seeing when we were marching in the streets and protesting and getting our voices heard, you know, seeing how the police department have to respond to some of those orders with violence against the people. And I also remember when the dictatorship came to an end, because I stayed in Paraguay to do my bachelor's degree before I moved to the United States. I've also remember how hard the police department work to restart again with the community, to gain trust, to connect with people, because a lot of trauma was built inside the community. For some people, seeing the uniform wasn't enough trigger to make them panic, to make them run. So it takes years, you know, and as an educator, I understand how trauma works. I understand based on that experience how trauma works. And fast forward to where I am now here in the United States. I've been living for 19 years, and I've been in education for over 20 in South America and here in the United States. I've been working for Dublin City School the last 8 years. I serve in the Equity and Inclusion Committee in the district. We are having the critical conversations that we're all mentioning tonight, because as you mentioned, Chief, we want growth and we wanted it attached to action, right? I am very protective of my time, but I gladly accept it, because I truly believe that if we're going to see the changes that we want, it starts right here, right? It's in the systems and it's in the organization. And you mentioned, Chief, right at the very beginning, that we're going to be reviewing policies, getting feedback from the community, doing some research, and all those things tells me that the voices of the people is at the center of our decision, that the voices of our community is important and they will be at the table. It's not just what I think, but what the people need and what our youth, I mean, as a Dublin City School educator, I want our students to feel safe. And we have students from all over the world, and not everybody have the same experience. So what does that mean when it comes in terms of professional development and growing as a police department, as a community in this connectivity work? Those are all the different aspects of the work that I would love to see us moving forward. I have been studying very, very, very deeply and carefully in the last 7 years, all topics and aspects of social racial justice through the lenses of an immigrant, but also through the lenses of my students and through the lenses of the community. I'm very active in the Latino community here in Columbus because, again, I believe that if our vision is aligned to not just conversation, but conversation attached to action, I really do believe we are already great. We can be so much better. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Villalba. I appreciate you sharing again just how fortunate we are to be a community that has such diversity, international diversity. And so understanding that that's the case, it's so important for us to consider perspectives that extend well beyond what we know of Central Ohio and certainly what we know just in the confines of the community of Dublin. Because as we've talked about through this conversation today, we want everyone to feel safe and feel protected and to feel comfortable in reaching out to our police department for that service and protection, whatever their perspective is, whatever their background is. If they find themselves in need, what we want is for them to have a level of comfort that the Dublin Police Department is here for you. And so folding in that perspective as we have these conversations is so critical so that we're not missing anything in our opportunity to build an inclusive environment within Dublin and to build an understanding that the Dublin Police Department is here to help everyone. So thank you very much. I want to thank everybody again for sharing so openly their background and perspective and for their enthusiasm for this group as we move forward. I'm astounded by how fortunate we are to bring all of you together to help us have these conversations as a police department and to help us connect to Dublin as a community and beyond. So thank you so much. There are a couple of members that are referenced in the resolution who are not named in the resolution. And so I wanted to take some time to introduce the resolution. Articulates that the chief will appoint 2 members of the police department as a first line supervisor and as an officer. And so I want to introduce the group to the members who I have asked to join us again on this in this conversations and on this journey. And I'm going to start with Officer Amber Mccloskey.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to have a seat at this table and listen to all of you and your perspectives. Hearing your backgrounds up until this point has been fascinating to me. You all are so incredibly intelligent, and I'm excited to get to know you more and to learn more about your background and your experience. But anyway, I work second shift patrol, so I work 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. We usually, I would say by and large, see the widest variety of calls and probably have the heaviest call load here at the department. Outside of that, back in, I would say late spring, early summer, I was appointed to 2 different units. One of them is internally here at the department. It's called the Community Liaison Unit. So I am now a Community Liaison Officer within that unit. And that runs very parallel to what we're doing here with the Chiefs Advisory Committee. We have a lot of the same end goals and a lot of, the same objectives. Externally, though, I've also been appointed to a city task force. So the Lgbtqia task force is something that the city wanted to kind of implement to make sure that the city is ensuring that we as a whole are thinking about that community and everything that we do in our live, work, play, are those individuals being represented fairly. And I am part of that community, so that was a really important and I think personal appointment for me, is to see that through and to see those objectives through. outside of that, I think that my goal overall for this committee, and I know that I've talked to Chief about this, and I think that I've also been on a separate call with Cameron, hi Cameron, where I mentioned this, but I would love to see us, if you kind of think of the community perspective as a road, and you think of the PD as a road, we both have our perspective of the PD, right? So internally, we view ourselves a certain way, and we perceive ourselves and our actions in the way that we're handling calls in a certain way. Well, likewise, the community is also perceiving the way that we're handling those calls in potentially a completely different way. So I think that a major goal for this committee is to kind of bring those roads together and align them as much as we possibly can. And that's not going to happen on every single call. It's not going to be ideal, and it's not going to be perfect all the time. But I think as a department, we just really want to make sure that our community members genuinely feel like we are doing everything that we can possibly do for them. I know that's how we feel we are operating in the department, but if that's not how it's being felt outside of the department, then there's a misstep there, and we need to make sure that gap is bridged and that we're moving forward kind of in a parallel universe. I would say my expectation for this committee is really just to serve as a candid and productive platform. Just based on everything you guys have said so far, I don't think that we're going to have a problem with any of that. So just please bring your ideas. I welcome any questions you have, especially the tough ones. If I don't have an answer, I promise you I know someone who does. So we will get you all of the answers that you need. And I wanted to, on a side note, I wanted to say to Cameron and to Susan Ortega, whether it's educationally or professionally speaking, I'm extremely interested to talk with and learn from both of you, because I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I don't know if what I'm feeling is reflected in the statistics, but it certainly feels like we have more calls every year, more calls for service that have to do with mental health crises. And so I really, really would love to delve more into our policies and your perspectives, so that way we can kind of reflect as a department and recognize, okay, what are we doing right? What are we potentially doing totally wrong? And kind of how can we manage these calls better? So I just wanted to say to you guys, I'm excited to talk to you guys more in depth once we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of everything. But thank you all for being here, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Officer Mccloskey. We are very fortunate to have Officer Mccloskey with us and to have her involved in so many initiatives here at the police department. And certainly, as much as I am able to answer from the perspective of the police department and the other administrators who are going to be involved in these conversations, it's important for us to remember that there are officers who are connected to that delivery of service on a call-to-call basis that really are having the impact every single day in providing service. So it was, with great intention that we wanted to include officers as part of this conversation to be able to provide some perspective as we have those, again, critical conversations about our service here in the city of Dublin. And in that regard, I want to, again, welcome another member who will be joining us in these conversations. He is a first-line supervisor for us here at the organization, and again, somebody we are very fortunate to have, not just with the department, but as part of these conversations. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Corporal Devin Howard.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the introduction. My name is Devin Howard, and I am a second shift corporal here with the Dublin Police Department. In addition to being a patrol supervisor, I'm also a bicycle officer, a former motorcycle officer, the traffic accident reconstruction team leader, and I also do labor relations and grievance representation for the Fraternal Order of Police. I graduated from Perrysburg High School in Perrysburg, Ohio, and I attended the Owens Community College, where I got my associate's degree in law enforcement technology and where I actually attended the police academy. After the academy, I got hired as a part-time officer in Pemberville, Ohio. Shortly after, became a full-time police officer in Fremont, Ohio, where I worked for almost 6 years. In 2012, I was hired by the Dublin Police Department, and then in March 2019, I was promoted to corporal. I obtained my bachelor's degree in criminal justice administration and also my master's degree in public administration. And at the beginning of this year, graduated from the supervisor training education program. I'm currently living in Clintonville, and I'm married with no children. I believe that the Dublin Police Department is one of the best police departments in the state, if not the country. We have exceptional officers who I think exude integrity, respect, commitment, and professionalism, which you'll learn a little bit more about. Those are some of our core tenets and what we hold true to heart and what we value as an organization. I believe that part of striving to be the best is to be forward-thinking, open-minded, and willing to have difficult conversations, as others have mentioned, and to make changes in our organization that not only benefit our residents, but to make changes that lead the way in community policing. One of my goals that I hope I share with all of you is to explore our organization together and to show you some of the things our organization and officers do that make Dublin special, and to develop our organization into a model that all police departments across the country strive to be like. So thank all of you for being here, and I really look forward to getting to know and learn from all of you and to experience some of your knowledge, insight, and insights. Specifically, Susan Ortega, I know I want to talk to you at some point here about mental health. We've been exploring the idea of the creation of a crisis negotiation team and co-response teams that have been popping up across the country that I think would be very valuable to our organization. I know that there are some different co-response teams that have been a part of other organizations like the Columbus Police Department and Franklin County Sheriff's Office that we've actually utilized with some success. So we're interested in bringing something like that to the Dublin community and sort of exploring that. So I look forward to talking to you about that a little bit.
Very good. Thank you very much, Devin. One of the things I want to highlight as we talk about, and as we build foundation for having conversations about the police department and about our service to the community, my hope is that we start by talking about what we do. Because that's generally how we certainly enter the conversation sometimes. What is it the police department does in responsiveness and service and protection to the community? But also then to transcend beyond what we do to the why we do it. And I think that's important for this group, that we answer those questions and that you ask those questions about purpose and intention behind the way we conduct business here in the city of Dublin. And then eventually to move from what we do, why we do it, then to who we are. And I think what's important for me is that we get an opportunity as we have conversations about policing practice, that something I said earlier is very important, that it is personal. It's personal to us. It's personal to the people that we have connection to in the community. And I think that a comfort level that, and Judge Maynard started off right by talking about this at the very beginning, that faith and trust and confidence in a police department is attached to a lot of times your experience with the police department and with a police officer. And on occasion, those encounters don't happen planned. It's not always conducive for people to understand the what, the why, and the who in those moments of unplanned contact, whether that be a response for a call or whether that be you're driving along and all of a sudden you see red and blue lights behind you, and that certainly wasn't always planned either. So creating an intentional venue for us to have that conversation about what we do, why we do it, and then who we are as a police department. Because I will tell you, and I'm certainly biased, I think we've got one of the best police departments on earth. We've got, and we have a lot of things that we do that make us special as a police department. We're going to talk about our policies, our procedures, our practices, the structures that we have. But what makes us special, I believe, are the members that we have here at this police department. It is that membership that really, I believe, makes what we do impactful and connected to exactly what the expectations are of the community. But I want to find out, what can we do better? And so that's what's so important about this conversation. One of the things I want to highlight about these two officers too is something I want to highlight about the organization itself, is that we draw members who have experience in a lot of fields in life and have law enforcement experience, policing experience, public safety experience from other organizations as well. And so these two officers are a great example of having had experience in other police departments, Amber in West Virginia and Devin in Fremont, Ohio, before they came to us, and folding in that perspective and folding in that experience from that they are drawing from is, I believe, what helps us to stay open to changing the way we do business to meet the expectations of the community and to better deliver on our mission of protection, service, and public safety in partnership with the community. It's what, again, helps us stay open to how do we drive ourselves to be better. So thank you both for joining the conversation, and I look forward to your input as we move forward as well. After introductions, I want to just make sure if there's any questions that anyone has for us right now. I wanted to take a pause just to make sure I at least asked if there was anything that you wanted to offer in feedback. I just wanted to give some space and again, thank everyone for their candidness and openness and frankness in our introductions as we set foundation for where we're going. So absent any questions at any point, as we move forward to talk about the police department as far as structure, mission, core values, and department goals, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. What I want and hope is that these conversations as we move forward and we all get comfortable with each other will in fact be interactive. And my hope is as we move forward, this will be less projection on my part and an opportunity for me to do what I just was able to do and am very grateful for, which is to listen to all the members of the committee. That being said, I did provide some structure within our agenda today to share what I think is important foundation, which is an overview of the police department, our mission, our core values, and our department goals. So I want to talk about that. And by way of talking about that, I'll get a chance to introduce the other administrators who are here as part of the conversation today and share a little bit of background about myself as well. So Jay, if you don't mind bringing up the PowerPoint, although, and I apologize in advance, I'm going to have you toggle back and forth, I think, as we move through this so that we can share a little bit of personal perspective as we move through as well. So the Dublin Police Department, and I'll share just the overall structure, and then I'm going to ask the Bureau commanders to each share a little bit about their responsibilities here at the police department. So as far as our organizational structure of the Dublin Police Department, we have an authorized strength of 121 total employees, 72 of which are sworn officers, and 49 civilian members as well of the organization. So I am the chief of police. I've been with the police department for right around 17 years now and in policing for almost 20 years. I've been the chief of police for just over a year now, but I've served in a number of capacities here with the police department. I am just, I couldn't be more blessed than to be here and working for this community and get to work with the fantastic members of this organization that I get to. Before I move on and ask the department bureau commanders to share their responsibilities for their respective bureaus and their personal background, I just want to share a little information about myself. I've met several of you before, but I just want to quickly and briefly give you sort of my background as well. I have been a police officer for almost 20 years now. I started my career in policing and public safety in the city of Oregon, Ohio, which is up in the Toledo area. I started that job almost immediately after graduating from college. I attended Bowling Green State University and got a degree in criminal justice, and then started my first job in Oregon, Ohio. And then in 2003, was very fortunate to get a phone call from a member of our organization who is actually still with us as a crime analyst. At the time, he was the lieutenant for the police department, Tom Hershey. He gave me a phone call and asked me to come down and take the test. And I told Tom I wasn't really interested in going anywhere, but I would come down and take the test and see how it went. And I could not be more happy that I did. My wife and I have been married for 20 years. We have 5 kids, which, as I always say, only sounds like a lot because it absolutely is. But we were looking for somewhere to move to raise our family. And what we found is that when we came here to Dublin, this community has absolutely become our family. We're so very blessed to be here and be part of this community. My wife is a nurse manager at a NICU unit at Riverside Hospital. And so service is sort of in our blood and something that we certainly try to impress upon our children, that our opportunity to use the gifts that we have been blessed with is really designed to use in the service of others, and something certainly that we hope our children continue. We are very fortunate to have had all of our children go through Dublin City Schools. We have 2 that have graduated from Scioto High School over the last 2 years who are off in college now. And then we have 3 that are currently enrolled at Scioto High School, a junior and then twins who are freshmen at Scioto High School. So we're members also of St. Bridget. So we're very, very fortunate to be here, but also want to do everything that I can to give back to the community for certainly all the blessings I've received as an opportunity to work here at the police department and to work for this community. So I am very passionate about the service that we provide here to this community. I'm very passionate about the individuals that I've been so blessed to work with as part of this department, and so thankful to have this group come together and to be connected to community members in a new way, and look forward to working with you all as we get a chance, as the Chiefs Advisory Committee continues to figure out where we go as a department and as a community. So thank you very much for allowing me a few moments to just introduce my background. And with that, I'm going to, Jay, if you don't mind moving on to the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to our Lieutenant, Greg Latanzi.
Good evening. Thanks, Chief. I just want to start by saying thank you to the members of the committee for volunteering your time to help us navigate some of these difficult conversations that have been highlighted this year in our nation. Again, my name is Greg Latanzi. I'm a lieutenant with Dublin Police Department, and I oversee our Operations Bureau. So our Operations Bureau is what you would normally consider the patrol officers that are out amongst the community members, driving in the patrol cars in uniform and responding to calls for service. That includes our K-9 unit, all patrol officers. We do have 3 patrol shifts divided into 8-hour blocks. So 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. would be day shift. 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. would be our afternoon or second shift, and then 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Our third shift crew. So each shift has a patrol sergeant who is really the responsible for that shift activity. And then along with the shift sergeant, there is 2 corporals as first line supervisors that also assist with the field supervision of the officers assigned to each shift, which is approximately 10 officers per shift. And that is divided each year after we look at our patrol workload analysis. And as you heard Officer Mccloskey say earlier, depending on the number of calls for each shift, we would divide those officers up accordingly to make sure that we have the appropriate coverage in the city to respond in a timely manner to those calls for service. So as you can see on the slides, about 44 of our 72 sworn members are assigned to the patrol section. I'm also responsible for our recruiting and field training program, as well as our firearms and defensive tactics trainers. A little bit about me personally. I'm married. I have 2 children. My daughter, Mackenzie, is 6, and my son, Braden, is 3. My wife is a nurse at Dublin Methodist Hospital. So I don't think she's watching, but if she is, I want to thank her for her support because, we find ourselves here a lot of the time. So she gets the brunt of my 3-year-old son, who sometimes is like his old man. He's a little difficult sometimes. So I appreciate her helping me out. I've been employed here with the city of Dublin since 2005. I grew up in a small town just north of here in Ashland, Ohio, where my father was a police officer. And after high school, I wanted to follow in his footsteps. I joined the Marine Corps and served 4 years of active duty in the Marine Corps and returned back to Ashland, where I worked as an investigator with the Ashland County Prosecutor's Office while I attended college at North Central State University before I was hired here again in 2005, and spent most of my time while I've been here at the Dublin Police Department in patrol, as well as our traffic unit. Oversaw our FTO program for a brief period of time as a sergeant, and as well I was an instructor for defensive tactics for some time as an officer and as a corporal. So I'm very fortunate to be at a department like Dublin, and again, very fortunate to work with some very fine individuals at our department, which again, we feel like is the best police department in Ohio, if not in the country. So very fortunate to work here. Lastly, I just want to share, some thoughts that I had as I listened to each one of you speak about your goals and objectives for what we are trying to accomplish as part of this committee, and just commit to each and every one of you what I think is important, and that I would ask each one of you as well as we continue to move forward on this journey, is that we all remain open-minded, open to learning, and working together to maintain the professional police standards that I think the Dublin Police Department are known for, as well as to explore new ideas for the best policing practices for the members of this community, focused on public safety and community inclusion. And with that, I will turn it back to the Chief and Lieutenant Tabernick. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant. The lieutenants have done a fantastic job of preparing us for the discussion today, and I just want you to be able to put a face with a name on the occasion that it is in their arena that we have questions or discussion that we're going to have as an advisory committee. My task for them is going to be bringing to the meetings the right members who are, again, involved in those critical components of our organization and can bring an informed perspective for the group and add to the conversations that we're going to have about our operations as we move forward. So thank you, Lieutenant. And I will ask Lieutenant Nick Tabernick as well to share his responsibilities as our Services Bureau Commander and his background with us as a lieutenant in our organization.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Tabernick. I'm a lieutenant with Dublin PD. I currently oversee our Support Services Bureau. And I wanted to start, again, just like my colleague said, thanking you guys for volunteering your time for this very important community endeavor. And I've had conversations offline with, Cam, obviously meeting Susan earlier this year. So I truly value those, and I think they'll be highly beneficial as we work through this. So thank you all again. Really appreciate it.
Lieutenant, can you speak up, please?
Yes. Sorry. Can you hear me a little better?
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So my current assignment over support services, I have general oversight for our detective bureau, and then our community impact unit, which has plainclothes investigators and traffic enforcement unit in it. And then our community education unit, which we already talked a little bit about our school resource officers. Our school resource officers are within our community education unit, as well as our CPA, which Ms. Yin is a graduate from. And then Amber already touched upon our community liaison unit that is also under that community education unit. The other responsibility I have is for all city events, the planning and execution of our security planning and safety as it relates to those events. A little bit of my policing background here. This was my first policing job, and I started as a second and third shift patrol officer working alongside Lieutenant Latanzi, working alongside Chief Pice when he was a corporal at the time. And then I moved on as a second shift corporal, third shift sergeant, oversaw the FTO program for a few years, and then moved into the community impact unit as the sergeant over that unit. And I would say throughout all that, I fully believe that I'm blessed to be a public servant. I'm happy that I've been a public servant for 15 years. I couldn't imagine any other line of work at this point. And being a public servant in such a great city and working with true professionals that understand the community's needs has truly just been an honor and very humbling each day coming to work. As far as personal background, I was born and raised outside of Cleveland, and in the under the guise of small world here, Judge Maynard, I believe I grew up right down from where you went to high school if you went to Gilmore. So I grew up in Mayfield Heights, right outside of Cleveland, and I'm currently married. I've been married for 9 years, and I have a 7-year-old son who is challenging my wife with the hybrid model of schooling right now, but he's overall a good kid, and obviously we'll get through this like everybody else. I also have 2 dogs at home, including a puppy. So please cut me some slack along the way here. That's obviously quite an endeavor, as anyone who has had one knows. I attended the University of Dayton, a proud Flyer alum, and then also the University of Cincinnati for a few of my degrees. I guess as far as expectations go, I'm really eager to hear, this is very broad, but I'm really eager to hear what our citizens have to say. We talk a lot about being professionals, and we are. And we talk a lot about knowing what we're doing, and we do. However, now is definitely a time to enhance that and truly figure out what our community wants from us. Make sure what we do, who we are, matches with community expectation. I think that's vitally important. Also, I will reiterate what Amber said, and I'm sure a couple of other of my colleagues have said it. Please ask the questions. Don't leave anything unasked. Don't leave anything unsaid. We are here to provide answers. We're here to provide perspective, any perspective that we can, and we're here to listen. We're here to listen to our community. So, in the same way, the last thing I would say, similar to what Devin gave to us, we believe that we're a premier organization. We truly believe that. But we're also cognizant of the fact that we don't want to become complacent. We don't want to just stop. So we believe in constant evaluation. We believe in constant improvement. And we truly think that the people that are on this committee are going to help us go even higher. So thank you again for your time. Thank you again for your commitment to this vital piece. And I look forward to working with all you guys.
Thank you, Lieutenant. I appreciate it. As both of the lieutenants have shared, our hope is that we are able to, again, answer any questions you might have, but also, as both have said, our focus is to listen and to hear first what you want to drive the conversations we have as an advisory committee. So I want to thank both of them for their openness in coming to the table and listening intently and then providing all the resources we will need to have those crucial conversations as we move forward. So the lieutenants oversee our operations and our services bureau, and it is my pleasure to introduce the director of our Consolidated Communication Center. We're very fortunate to have him as an exceptional resource as it relates to communication, but also as an administrator here with the police department for the tenure he has had, the historical context that he brings for our conversations as well. And he's smiling already because he believes I called him old. No, I said historical context. So it's my pleasure to introduce Director Jay Somerville.
Well, I'm apparently quite historical, so he says that about me a lot. But wow, let me start by saying any opportunity we get to engage with each other as a community, because I've been very humbled and proud to serve this community for 29 years, and it's our community. We're not here without you. We're a tool for this community. We're a part of it, and we serve you. So when I say I've been very honored to serve this community for 29 years, I mean it. I'm the civilian of the group. I'm not a sworn police officer. Dublin has been very progressive in the service levels that they provide and the way in which they provide it. And several years ago, the idea was floated by several of the police and fire departments here in Northwest Franklin County to consider a regional consolidated 911 center. And they looked to Dublin at the time for that leadership, and we stepped up to the challenge. And we operate the Northwest Regional Emergency Communications Center, which is one of three aspects that I oversee in my bureau. As of today, our Consolidated Center serves 4 municipalities and 2 townships for a total of 4 fire departments and 4 police departments. So we serve Dublin, Hilliard, Upper Arlington, and as of last week, we started providing service to the city of Worthington. In addition to those municipalities, we're serving the fire departments of Washington Township, which is the fire department that serves Dublin, and Norwich Township, which is the fire department that serves the city of Hilliard, along with the adjacent Brown Township area of Franklin County. So in the communications center, we have 40 communications employees, 28 communications technicians or 911 operators, 6 communication shift supervisors, 3 communication shift managers, and an operations manager. So we're the 3rd largest 911 center in the region, behind the City of Columbus and Franklin County Sheriff. And we handle around 150,000 incidents a year. In that capacity, we are the police department's front porch. We're who you're going to probably interact with first in calling us for service, whether it's a non-emergency or an emergency. Our staff truly is the first responder, and we know how important it is to have that welcoming front porch, to have the skills necessary to get the information we need, to make sure we send you the proper response, and that response is well informed when it's on its way. I've got some of the best people in the profession, much like the chief said earlier. We're lucky enough to we're lucky enough to recruit from other agencies and try to get the best staff that we can. So we're very blessed with the resources, but no matter how good the resources are, we're blessed with the best people. And we look forward to having these conversations and participating in them, as our staff is truly dedicated to the mission here of making sure that the City of Dublin and the communities, all the communities we serve, have the best level of professional service that we can provide. In addition to the Regional Communications Center, the other way that the Technical Services Bureau is really the front porch of the police department, I oversee our Records Bureau, which has 1 records supervisor, 4 records techs, and a property technician. So when you come in to conduct business with us here at the police department, our Records Bureau is the first work group you're going to encounter, and we take that very seriously. So proud of those folks for compiling everything from the reports that are taken to the body cam video that's collected to filling public records requests. And they will be very much a part of putting together any records or anything we need here in this committee to review as a part of our discussions. And then the other portion of my responsibility is overseeing our agency accreditation. We are internationally accredited with the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies. Dublin's been accredited since 1990 as a police department. And recently, 3 years ago, we became internationally accredited by CALIA in a separate accreditation program for our communications center. We're one of only 7 911 centers in the state of Ohio to have that accreditation. Just a little bit about me. Like I said, I've been with Dublin PD for 29 years. I've also been a school district resident for that time. Started my career in 1985 in the city of Lima as a communications technician. So I've been in public safety for about 34 years now. 2 kids, both graduates of Scioto High School and amazingly graduates of the Ohio State University. Judge Maynard, it must be something about the teachers in the Dublin school system, because I've got 2 kids that didn't go the law enforcement public safety route. They didn't go the registered nurse route, where my wife is an RN at the Ohio State University Medical Center. They decided they wanted to become teachers. My oldest graduated with a history education degree and is currently enrolled at Kent State in a library science education master's program. And my daughter graduated as the first ever class at Ohio State University of primary education with a specialty in visually impaired studies. And she started her career just last week with Columbus City Schools, teaching at Leawood Elementary as their elementary district-wide visually impaired instructor, and has the only visually impaired classroom in the City of Columbus Schools elementary system. So she's very excited about that. As for my expectation, like I said, any chance I get to interact together as a community, because we are all one community, and have that conversation, that dialogue about how we can do it better for you, how we can serve you better, what your expectations are, what your concerns are. I wouldn't be here if not for you. If my community didn't need me, they wouldn't have me. And I'm here to serve each and every one of you. I was especially ecstatic that so many of you said you're looking forward to giving your input, insight, and have discussions, but almost every one of you said you've talked to your fellow community members, your neighbors, your friends, that this is truly a community discussion and you're here with the community in mind. And with that, I've been humbled to work for Dublin. I've been humbled to work for this community, this city council, this group of law enforcement and public safety professionals. And as excited as I've been, I'm even more excited at how much better it can be through these conversations. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to thank again the Bureau commanders. As fortunate as I am to work with everyone here at this organization, their support through all of the conversations that we have on a day-to-day basis about our operations, about our focus and intention, are instrumental in helping all of us make the right decisions for how we improve our service to the community. And we look forward to you guys joining us as part of those discussions. So the next piece I want to go through. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Before you go on, I just want to say thank you to Jay. He's a gem. For all of you who don't know it, he's a gem. And I appreciate your sincerity, Jay, and certainly look forward to working with you in this endeavor with the chief.
Thanks, Judge. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate it. Certainly, we're very fortunate to have Jay as part of our team. So thank you. I appreciate it. And Jay and Nick and Greg all talked about, at some level, the focus and intention of our agency. And I thought it was good for us to take a few moments to share with you what really drives our organization as we have discussions internally about where we're going and how we improve our service delivery on to the city and to our community. What are those guiding principles for our organization? And so I just want to walk through for everyone here as a foundation what we utilize to help us make those decisions currently. So the document we have in front of us, it covers our mission statement, our core values, and then the subsequent we'll talk about are really the goals that are our focuses for this calendar year. So our mission statement and core values. Everything for us begins and ends with our mission statement. It is our purpose. It is our why for our organization. So for our mission, Dublin Police employees are committed to protecting life, liberty, and property. We will provide the highest level of service and work in partnership with our community to ensure public safety. And I'm going to pause there for a moment because I want to talk about the intention and focus of those words as part of our mission statement. When I talk about this in public, I always share it in brief. Our focus really is protection, service, and public safety in partnership with the community. This is not intended to be how we want to provide police service in the community. This is a partnership in how we provide police service and protection to the community in partnership with our community members. And that is very intentional that language is included in our mission statement. For us, focusing on delivering on that mission of protection, service, and public safety in partnership with our community, we really underline that with our core principles, which are vigilant, ethical, and impartial enforcement of law. And so much of the conversation that we are going to have, I believe, is really about, again, providing consistent service, to providing impartial enforcement, and to providing service for everyone in our community equally. So that is a focus and intention as a core principle for our organization. Critical incident and preparedness and response, crime prevention, reduction, and deterrence, and improvement of traffic safety, you will see again reflected as in our goals for our organization. But we felt like those principles are so universal and something that it will be so perpetually important to us that we included them in our very mission statement for our organization. We will remain dedicated to service and committed to excellence, focusing on our core values. And the core values for our organization are professionalism. We are members of an exceptional and highly trained law enforcement organization. Our conduct and demeanor adhere to the highest standards of personal and organizational excellence. Integrity. We hold ourselves accountable to the highest levels of honesty, truthfulness, and ethical conduct. Respect, we ensure that all persons are treated with equality, dignity, and courtesy. And commitment, we are dedicated to our profession, our community, our agency, and our mission. The reason I start with this document is I think it is important that we share with the members of the advisory committee, and we share every opportunity that we can with members of our community, what we hope our community holds us accountable to. This is the document we hold ourselves accountable to. These are not simply words on the wall for us. These are what we must live and breathe each and every day and should guide the decisions and focus of our organization today and as we move forward and evolve as a public safety organization and as we improve our service to the community. These are the things that we hope help guide us in that discussion, that conversation, and our intention as we continue to deliver protection, service, and public safety in partnership with the community. Jay, if you can move on to the goals. Any questions about the mission statement and core values? And again, at any point, if you have questions or comments, certainly we'll go back and I'd love to have that conversation as well. So I wanted to share, and I won't go through all the measures and strategies and tactics in each of the documents, but I want to share some of the overarching goals for our organization. And I'll start by sharing how we develop these goals. Each year, we meet as a supervisory team in December to talk about the goals for the upcoming year. Preceding that meeting as a supervisory staff, we ask each of our supervisors to meet with their work groups to gather the officers, the comtechs, our record staff, all of the members of the organization, their intentions, focus, and perspectives on where we should be headed as an organization over the next calendar year in trying to achieve our goals as an organization. All of our goals are intentionally connected to our mission statement because we feel that it is important that all of our goals contribute directly to us delivering on that mission of protection, service, and public safety in partnership with our community. So what you will see is very intentionally our goals are delineated to contribute and to accomplish our delivery of that mission statement. So our goal 1, enhance our readiness and demonstrate our ability to effectively respond to and successfully resolve critical incidents and major crimes. This goal and focus is important to us, and you saw it as a core principle for our organization. We are very fortunate to work in a community for a community that does not experience an abundance of those really high threshold events, those moments in our community where the world entirely changes for everyone. And the police department, along with other public safety entities and the community, are called to respond together to put the world back together and make it right. Because we don't have an abundance of those occurrences does not mean we have anything less than an absolute obligation to perpetually prepare for those moments when we're called to respond to those critical incidents. So a focus for our organization is preparing ourselves to be able to effectively respond to and resolve those critical incidents. Our second goal, reducing theft offenses throughout the city. So this is our goal, which focuses on crime occurring in the community. The number one offense that we have reported to our community, which is similar to most communities, are theft offenses. Specifically, our focus is to reduce the number of theft offenses that occur within a calendar year as it is benchmarked against our previous activities that have occurred historically. The focus for us in reducing crimes, it relates to all crimes, but our intentional focus is on theft because that's what we have reported to us the most. Within that category, we focus on theft from vehicles and burglary and B&E offenses because those, again, are the reports we see most frequently filed with our police department. Before I leave this goal, what I want to make sure I emphasize with the group and all the members of our community is while we judge our successful progression towards achieving this goal based on historical benchmarks, there is no amount of crime that is acceptable to us to occur in the community. There is no dismissible number. Even if we achieve this goal by reducing from a previous year's total, we are perpetually working at addressing issues of crime in the community with a constant focus on reducing that number. For a community member who is the victim of a crime, we take that personally too, because our job is to protect and serve this community. But I wanted to highlight that those are our focuses in addressing crime. Those theft offenses, theft from vehicle, burglary, and B&E are the ones we focus on primarily, but all of the criminal occurrences that happen within the city are certainly important for us to successfully resolve as well. Our third goal, improvement of traffic safety in the city. We have a lot of roadway and highway that travel to and through and from the city of Dublin. Our focus is to make it as safe as possible for people to travel from, to, or through our community. And so what we focus on as a metric for achieving a successful outcome with this goal specifically is really our focus on traffic crashes, serious injury traffic crashes, OVI-related traffic crashes, and OVI offenses that we have occur within the city. So again, while we track this based on a metric, our goal is to continually reduce the number of occurrences, so we are providing the safest environment possible to travel to, from, or through within the city of Dublin. And then finally, our fourth goal really has been a very intentional focus for us as we came into this year. And again, we developed these goals in December as a supervisory team. This goal, enhance and demonstrate our ability to effectively address issues of significant community concern. And underneath that goal, we've highlighted some intentional focuses for us this year as an organization. The first of which is community outreach and engagement. We have a very good history of connecting to our community, and I think our community education unit and our school resource officer program is a great example of Dublin as a police department, as a community, and Dublin City Schools investing long ago in providing sufficient resources to have that connectivity to our school system, to our students, and to our parents in our community. But what we wanted to highlight were all of the additional ways that we intentionally want to commit to community outreach and engagement. And I would suggest that this discussion that we have had leading up to the passing of the resolution, the enactment of the Community Task Force, and the Chiefs Advisory Committee fit exactly with our intentional focus on responding to and addressing issues of significant community concern, and our focus as an organization in community outreach and engagement. And we are so very fortunate that we have the opportunity now, again, to add an additional component of connectivity to our community members in responsiveness to expectations by our community. The additional bullets that we have highlighted this year, certainly we're fortunate to have a number of marquee events that occur within the city of Dublin, including the Memorial Golf Tournament, the Dublin Irish Festival, the 4th of July Parade and fireworks, and the St. Patrick's Day Parade, all of which we didn't really have the opportunity to experience as we normally do. But if you've been in Dublin long, you know that those events are very special and unique to our community. And our job and focus as an organization really is to ensure that those happen as safe as we possibly can, and always examining our plans to continue to keep them safe, enjoyable events for our community and our community members. Our focus is, in addition, under this goal, drug enforcement and education, addressing those issues of how drug activity impacts crime within the city of Dublin, but also an intentional focus on education, and really focused on making sure we address drug activity for the issues that it relates to impacting community members. For those individuals who find themselves stuck in a cycle of addiction and involved in that activity, our goal really is to make sure we're providing resources to those individuals and making sure we do what we can as an organization to cut down on the opportunities and those who are trafficking drugs to our community and preying upon vulnerable members of our community in that potential that they could be caught again in that cycle of addiction. Mental health awareness we talked about as part of our discussion earlier. This has been an intentional focus for our organization, both as us providing ourselves as a vocal resource and advocate for the resources that exist within the community and the importance of mental health for our community, and an intentional focus this year on highlighting how we bring the community together to talk about suicide awareness and suicide prevention. And again, Susan Ortega and Dublin Centero have been a fantastic resource. We were actually developing a program to have a town hall forum to talk about mental health awareness, and suicide prevention, which was intended to occur in April. And unfortunately, with the current response to COVID and the pandemic, we weren't able to host that event, but our intention still is to follow through when we have the opportunity to deliver that town hall forum and to open that discussion in the community for our department and for our community later this year. And finally, human trafficking awareness and enforcement. Again, we focus on this very similarly to the issues of drug activity in the community. Our focus is in education, prevention, and addressing those issues of human trafficking awareness for our community members, and again, focusing on those people who are preying upon vulnerable members of our community and taking advantage of anyone who is in our community as it relates to involvement in human trafficking. So again, that fourth goal is really new for us and expanded in intention to cover those bullet points you see listed, but the focus of the goal is addressing issues of significant community concern, which I wanted to say again to highlight here at the end, because I think that what we have the opportunity in front of us now as the Chiefs Advisory Committee collectively is to identify those issues of significant community concern and to come together to figure out the right path forward to take care of our community and again provide protection service and public safety in partnership with our community better than we ever have, and in a way that meets with community expectation. So thank you for letting me cover those goals. Any questions or commentary or response or reaction to our goals and our focus?
Yes, Chief, this is Imran. Real quick. So the annual meeting you mentioned about that happens in December for setting up the goals for the next year, is that open to public and most likely open to us as well to attend and kind of more listen in kind of deal?
That is a great question. We have not opened that to the public in the past, and I appreciate you asking that question, because I think the opportunity that's in front of us today in bringing this advisory committee together, and really the intention for me in sharing the goals, is that my hope is that when we reach December, we can have both a presentation for how we have progressed towards achieving those goals this year to share with you. And again, our hope is to open up conversation and to improve our accountability and transparency to the community, to share with you how we have worked towards achieving those goals, our success in it and working towards those goals, and to get feedback from you about what the goals might look like that we can take into that meeting with our supervisors to help formulate the goals for 2021. And then as we come out of that meeting, to share with you so that you can share with the community members you're connected to or anywhere else that you're connected, what we're doing as an organization, again, to deliver on that mission of protection, service, and public safety in partnership with our community. That's a fantastic question. So thank you.
Thank you. And I got one more segment to that. So in regards to, the announcements were made, like, as far as the task force and the Chiefs Advisory Committee has been formed. So of course, the being, majority of us being in leadership role in the community, the people are going to reach out on their own as well and have some feedback. Is it okay to kind of have a, be able to share with them the mission and the vision statement of the advisory committee openly and candidly?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. My hope in sharing today was one, to share with the members of the advisory committee so we have a foundation and you have an understanding of what drives our organization and our focus, but also to share, because there are people who are watching this meeting who are not necessarily part of the advisory committee, but so they have an awareness. As much as we can share this information with the public, we want our community and anyone who has interest in our organization to know exactly what drives the focus and intention of the Dublin Police Department. So it is something that we absolutely want to share as much as we possibly can. It's not a secret. It's absolutely everything we want people to know about our organization. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So let's say because this committee brings you let's say 20 recommendations next week or next month. It could be opportunities or it could be problems, it could be anything. So how do we manage? Because there should be expectations, right? I mean, as humans, limited resources you have, you can just have you have goals, right? Not necessarily goals, identify if everyone brings every meeting, let's say one issue, because we need to prioritize. Out of one issue each, that opportunity that becomes 10 issues or opportunities. Or 10, I would say recommendations, 10 recommendations. Because every month you cannot solve 10 recommendations, right? So question is, you don't have to answer now, but just let's, for the team to think about it, how do you prioritize? Let's say we'll take whatever is possible, 3 things at a time. Just I'm giving an example. You don't have to commit to anything, or 3 things at a time. Okay, maybe we round robin or voting justice. These are the 3 things we want to prioritize. And how does then maybe you have to go through city council. I don't know, but these are the 3 things we identify are the most critical for the community. Then just how does the outcome looks like? How do you measure the outcome, and when it's going to come out, how does it look like? Because that makes us all making sure our time and our commitment is valued, and at the same time communicate with the public. These are the 3 issues, and this is the outcome we are expecting. We'll try our best, because you cannot be 100% all the time. So that's what, as a businessman, okay, you can talk for hours and hours and you can get anything, but end of the day, what you're getting it done or not, that's important, and when you are getting it done. So as a committee, that makes us all feel good and communicating. These are the 5 issues or 10 issues we took in the year, and this is the improvement we made. So that's my recommendation, and you don't have to, let's all think about it and just say, how do you proceed going forward?
Thank you for bringing it up. And I got a sense that maybe Cameron, did you want to jump in, or do you have some feedback?
No, I think that's something that we're going to have to really consider, as individuals, is what things we are most passionate about, seeing improvements in, and, sooner rather than later. So it's not, something that we, continue to push off, because, I can see, to your point, that becoming an issue if we don't focus on that sooner rather than later.
I have a thought just on management of expectations and whatnot. I think, Doctor, that was a great question and great insight for us. But maybe we need to have a designated place where the community's concerns can go, some email address or something along those lines. And then maybe we should just work as a smaller committee, take turns on checking in with the department, what's come in, this is 4 weeks to a month, who's on call sort of for 1 week or 2 weeks, and what came in the mail, and then share that, or in some way prioritize it amongst ourselves, and then send it out for the other committee members to consider during the course of the month, if our meetings are going to be monthly, and try and address them in some way, shape, or form before we actually get back to our next committee meeting.
I also wanted to kind of add, if we're able to have meetings without anybody from the police department, just to foster open and honest conversations that sometimes may be a little bit, people might hesitate, and it has nothing to do with being negative about the police department, but they just might hesitate about saying something that you might not want to hear. And we want to foster that type of conversation. So maybe we can have those committees, smaller committees, without people from the staff members from the police department, just so we can have those honest conversations too.
Those are all fantastic points, and thank you for asking the questions again, sharing perspective. I'm very excited because a lot of the things that you have said are things that I have considered, and things that I've talked with several of you about as we have prepared for our initial meeting. And so managing expectations certainly is one piece. Garnering input from community members, from each of you, and then prioritizing, I think, is another piece. My hope, and what I would suggest, is part of the resolution is identifying some heads of the committee, a chair and a vice chair, which may be advantageous for helping us navigate a point of contact for facilitating some of that information, for gathering some of that information, and then soliciting feedback from either the committee members or from the community, and then helping us determine what those priorities might be and bringing to the table. My hope is, and while I've done a lot of talking in this first meeting, my hope is that it doesn't continue to be just projection from my part. It is the committee deciding where do we want to go and what do we want to talk about and prioritize first. And then my commitment and my responsibility is to bring the right resources to the table to answer those questions, to facilitate that dialogue, and then to listen to what you have to say as it relates to either your perspective or perspective that you have gathered to inform those conversations. So I think the opportunity that exists for us in the next meeting, or maybe the next couple of meetings, is identifying that chair and vice chair to help coordinate those activities, and to help consolidate that input and feedback. And then as a group, allowing you to establish those priorities, and then just letting me know, what do we want to talk about first? As we talked about at some point in the meeting, and I'll emphasize again, there's a lot of work for us to do, even if it's just having conversation about what we do currently. As we have those conversations, I have no doubt it's going to spark some consideration of where we go, either as a committee and hopefully as an organization as well. That's how it works internally for us. For us, navigating that is getting feedback from our membership through our supervisors that comes into a conversation, much like the goal setting meeting I mentioned as we talked about our mission statement and goals, gathering that information and then distilling it down to common ideas and themes, and then focusing on, well, what are the priorities we're going to attack. Our goal really is the composite of that conversation occurring over the set of a couple of months, and internal conversations, and then us saying, okay, so how do we want to put the focus in front of our organization for the next year on the things that we're going to tackle? And then we'll assess what of those identified points of focus we're going to carry on into the future as we get together here at the end of the year. So I love the conversation. I'm excited to hear that we're talking about sort of the X's and O's of how the committee is going to work, because that's certainly the natural progression of this body. But I would suggest that if we can figure out who we were going to point as a chair and vice chair in the next couple of meetings, that might help facilitate, again, a point of contact to gather those ideas and to communicate. Any other consideration? Go ahead, sir.
If I can ask for, I guess, two things. Number one, in the interest of getting all of us on the same page that are not within the police department, at least I think I would find it helpful if I could learn more about what the police department sees. So maybe it's a form of a report that tells us statistically, these are the things that Dublin Police Department deals with. How many incidents related to what you would categorize under the racial issues? How many on the LGBTQ issues, or how many just on the youth issues, drug issues, whatever it might be. I think it would be good for us to have a baseline that is commonly shared, so that we know we can sort of have a common starting point. I think that's how I would put it, because I think right now we all have our own perception, and even though we've had a chance to share a little bit of that with each other, there is probably a value in having a more concrete information that we can perhaps numerically evaluate. I think a lot of what we'll talk about is not going to be numbers, but at the same time, I feel like there will be some things that numbers can illustrate for us with regards to what we're dealing with. So that's the first request that I have, some kind of a sharing of information. And if that could include, some of the pain points from the police side that perhaps you would hesitate to share with us. I think that would be good, because just as you are encouraging us to speak up, just as you are encouraging us to say what's on our mind, I would say it would be very helpful for us to hear what's on your mind as well as the police department. And for you to feel that you are in a safe room, that this is a safe environment, and we're just trying to deepen our mutual understanding, because it can't be just us telling you what we think. We need to hear what's in your mind as well.
Thank you for offering that. I think we have some resources that, as we move on, I think would be advantageous for us to share. They are related to, again, our goals, and monthly we do some analysis of the activities that we are seeing reported to the community, our activities as a police department, and I think a version of that report that we provide to our supervisors for our monthly staff meetings would be excellent for you guys to see what the ins and outs of operations look like for us as a police department. And while it does start with numbers, it's never the place that it completely ends either. The numbers are a jumping off point for conversation as it relates to context about what we're experiencing and about what our activities look like in trying to protect and serve the community. So that's a great suggestion. Next meeting, we will work on bringing a report back that gives you an overview of what we have currently, and then maybe that is something that we adjust to better provide the information to the advisory committee, or maybe that's exactly what you were looking for, but it is something that we have currently that I think will provide some information. And certainly either the Bureau commanders or any of the Bureau commanders or officers, if you have any perspective, certainly I don't want to miss an opportunity for you to share as well.
Chief, don't forget that you have that study that you made available to all of us, and that certainly can be a good resource for topics that we would discuss in the course of any of our meetings. And certainly if we identify 2 or 3 topics before next meeting even, we could look at those, or also have those as jump off points for discussion.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate that. Yes, I just wanted to leave some space. I do have it on the agenda, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. I just wanted to leave some space if there was any other questions or comments as it related to the goals. But I couldn't be more excited about the conversation. Again, this was my hope, was that there would be a opportunity for us to, again, dive a little deeper into what we do, why we do it, and who we are as an organization. So I want to introduce you, and I know we're getting late on time, and I appreciate it, but I want to make sure I get to this point because I think that in addition to what the judges mentioned, the other piece I have on the agenda is our police website. So over the last several months, we've had a lot of conversation with community members. And I would be remiss if I did not highlight, again, in this forum, but also in this public meeting, we had a community member, Allison Sauceda, who reached out to us early in the conversations that we had in the community about policing practices, and her questions on what she wanted to know about how our police department conducts business, and how, again, we are looking at what's occurring across the country and where we sit in relation to our policies and practices as an organization. So we had a really good conversation that the lieutenants and I sat down along with our public information officer, who I will introduce here in a moment, to answer questions for Ms. Sauceda and to provide some information. And it really built the foundation for our understanding in what are the questions right now that the public and our community want answered as a result of their awareness and curiosity about what happens as far as policing practice in the city of Dublin. And so we started working on a project, this is over the last several months, to try to provide that information and resource from our website to the community. And so what we have worked on is a redesign of our police website to intentionally hopefully hit some of those questions and concerns the public has, because there are people who may not feel comfortable in coming to an advisory committee meeting in the future, even when we hold them in open forum. They may just want to passively sort of observe and find the information for themselves, because they may not be comfortable yet in asking those questions out in the open. And while my hope is that they reach out to you, I also wanted to provide a resource to the community for those members who just wanted to go and find it for themselves. So with that sort of introduction, who I want to introduce is our Public Information Officer, who has joined us over the last couple of months, and it couldn't have come at a better time and couldn't have been a better resource for us as we started having these conversations and building a platform to share information with the community. Ms. Rebecca Myers.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to join you at your homes virtually, hopefully in person one day. I just wanted to start by saying it's been wonderful to hear your unique perspectives. And as somebody who's new to police and law enforcement communications, I started in May 2020. I'm happy to be part of Dublin in this unique moment and trying to empower all of us to have our voices heard and just have our questions answered. So part of that is, since I was new, I didn't really have, I didn't know too much about the Dublin police. So I got to use that perspective to try to help explain things on the website. So a lot of it, I realized we didn't have information about what exactly the bureaus do and what the department does every day. So we kind of added that, which is what the lieutenants and Jay went over earlier, but hopefully that's reflected here. So I'm going to share my screen and show you the draft version of what we have. So we're hoping to elicit your feedback and see if there's anything we've missed, anything you still have questions about. So that can be kind of part of the committee's homework, if you will, to just see what's missing from this narrative and what you want to know more about. To Mr. Shoji's point, perhaps it's reports or some more information like that that's more detailed. So if you can just use that scope to view this website, which we will share with you, that would be really helpful. So I started with the DPD just to get some basics covered. Please feel free to just peruse all of this, even if it's just a wording change that needs to happen. Something that's going to make it the most accessible to our community is what we're looking for. So you can learn more about the mission statement that the chief went over. We have our contact information here that's about all of the supervisors and the officers' schedules and their contact information should you need to reach out to somebody specific. So hopefully that can show some transparency and also just invite some conversation. We have the bureaus and our goals that the chief went over, which includes the fourth goal, which is about issues of significant community concern, which links to what we're doing right now. Our standards reviews the Lgbtqia process and it gives a little bit of overview of what that means and what that accreditation for the department means. So I think that's also an interesting part of the narrative, just to know how much that the DPD is really engaged to make sure that they're a premier organization. Under review and accountability, we have a lot of the different programming, which I think is also something that, the chief is talking about a lot, is that we want to explain and highlight what the officers are already doing, which makes Dublin stand out. So we talk about our response to resistance, which I'll actually come back to, but the complaint process, internal affairs, it kind of reads like a story. So if something were to happen with an officer, what that next process would be. There's an early warning system in place, which I found really interesting as a civilian who, didn't know much about the workings of the police department, and just how supervisors and the chief and everyone monitors each officer in the review process they go through, just to make sure that everybody's up to speed. And then we have some more information about bias-based training and some report information from a recent report, just to kind of explain what the department is doing in that section. We were discussing recently, we'll probably add a piece about the mission and goals separately, just to really call those pieces out. Our hiring is also all about recruitment and how to join the DPD. I thought this was interesting too, just the exams and the process and everything that that you have to do just to be to start the process to become an officer, and the DPD's partnership with the Columbus Police Academy for that academy training. So so to continue the story, once you are the officer, you can look at all the training that the officers do And I thought this was really interesting. So I tried to explain just a little bit about each piece of training because there is quite a lot. And I found that really impressive. And it covers so many aspects that we're all talking about as a nation. So I think that can be a good spot that we can expand upon too if you're interested, including the city's field training and evaluation program, which we explain further in depth at the bottom of this page. And that's all about on-the-job training and how much practice goes into creating the officers for the department. And we have the responding to resistance section. So this is a lot about definitions about use of force. We try to make these definitions available so that language which is used throughout makes sense, and that we have agreed upon a definition of what that means to the DPD, including things like de-escalation and important parts of how that plays into a process should an officer need to use force. Also for accountability, the body-worn camera policy for the department, and some other information about the considerations of lethal force, less lethal force, and that review process should force be used. As well as an analysis of a report. So that part obviously will probably be a chunk of something that we all want to discuss. So please take a look at that. Our community engagement reviews pretty much everything that all the leadership has talked about tonight. And we have, I didn't get to see it before COVID, but I'm excited to see how all of the officers interact in person. But these are all of the other initiatives, including the Citizens Police Academy, other community events like National Night Out, and then also all of the inclusion initiatives, including the LGBTQ+ liaisons, community liaison officers, the committee right now, and then the school resource officer and their information. And then we also wanted to encourage people to connect with the PD. So when it's not COVID, we'll have that ride along option. And then there's also, you could schedule to meet with the police, compliment an officer, things like that. And just trying to encourage that back and forth communication. So if you could all please review our work and see what we're missing and how we can better describe what it is that the police is doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And our intention is to send that link to the members of the committee. That is a work in progress still, but I want to thank Rebecca and the Bureau commanders and the members of our organization. One of the things that's important for me to highlight as well is as much as we could try to plan on the things we think you may want to see, our members of our organization have been equally enthusiastic about finding a way to share the work they're so passionate about and the highlights of our organization with the community, and also connecting to those questions and concerns and curiosities that the public has right now about policing. So our intention is, again, to provide a resource that the community can go to for any member or anyone who has interest in our organization and find out exactly what we do, why we do it, and who we are. So thank you for reviewing that. We're going to send that link out. And the last piece I wanted to highlight, I want to go back to something Judge Maynard offered, which was a consideration for us as a group to go through the document that I sent when I notified all the members that they were approved as part of the advisory committee. It's a lengthy document, so I hate it's not homework, but it is, I think, very advantageous for us collectively to have a resource for us to consider what are the questions and priorities we may want to tackle. Again, it's a lot of information, but I think that it does a good job of framing within categories the important topics that I think would be advantageous for us to start talking about as we continue to meet. So that being said, the last piece I wanted to cover, and again, we're coming up on a couple hours and a half now. I just wanted to make sure I left some space to solicit any feedback you guys have about the meeting today, any recommendations you have about a future meeting schedule, and any topics that you might have that you know you want to see on the agenda for the next meeting.
Only one comment. If it's going to be 2.5 hours, maybe we'll take a five-minute bio break or something. That will be helpful.
I completely agree. I was hopeful we were going to be able to keep it short, but the introductions, I didn't want to cut off anybody's opportunity to share today. No, but thank you. That's a good point.
Chief Paynes, for the next meeting, I do have can we have an ASL interpreter be a part of the meetings? So for our differently abled individuals in our community who may need that. And then also for the website, I noticed that there was not image descriptions underneath the pictures. And that also helps visually impaired individuals if there are image descriptions underneath pictures for them to be able to access what they're seeing or what they should be seeing or what they should be reading. So for next meeting, definitely, I think like we need to have an ASL interpreter. I think that would be a good idea, just to make sure we're open to everybody.
That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you very much.
Chief, I also do have 2 public comments.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Because hopefully we navigate to a place where we're able to meet in person at some point in the near future. But I certainly want to be mindful of everything we're dealing with as a continuing and evolving responsiveness to the pandemic, that we want to make sure everybody is comfortable before we do that. But because we were unable to meet in person today, we did publish that we were having the meeting, and Rebecca has the input from public commentary, which we wanted to read today as part of the end of the meeting, and then we can come back and address when we schedule our next meeting.
Thank you. We have one comment from Kara Morgan of Dublin. She says, my comments to the Dublin City School Board last night are also relevant for this committee, so I am submitting here. I am the parent of a Dublin graduate and the parent of a current Dublin student. I came here to express support for the teachers and administrators who are working to ensure that students feel heard and connected and valued. One way I heard about in which high school teachers did that was by wearing inclusive t-shirts to welcome students back to school. I understand based on Dr. Hoadley's comments tonight that these teachers and administrators were told not to wear these at school, and I'm very saddened to hear that. I had seen this act as contributing to Ohio's strategy for improving outcomes for Ohio high school graduates. So now this leaves me wondering if Dublin has a plan for meeting this learning domain. I know this domain is important because it's in the state strategic plan. I was an appointed member of the Ohio State Board of Education for 2 years. I served on the steering committee for the strategic plan for education for that, which was issued in 2018. You can find this plan easily by Googling Each Child Our Future or simply Googling Ohio Education Strategic Plan. The stated one goal of this plan is to increase annually the percentage of high school graduates who are succeeding after graduation. In this plan, towards that goal, there are 4 equally important learning domains. They are foundational skills, which include math and reading, well-rounded content, which includes social studies and art, leadership and reasoning, which focuses on critical thinking skills, and finally, social emotional learning. The experts and practitioners in education from around the state who developed the strategic plan wanted to be clear that in order to be successful after high school, competency in all of these areas is important. In today's global, digital, fast-moving society, these skills will prepare Ohio students to thrive in the future. About social emotional learning, the plan says life is a shared journey. Research shows that being part of a community improves life satisfaction and health. Living as part of a community involves understanding the importance of social interaction and personal feelings. Social emotional learning includes competencies like self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, collaboration, empathy, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. The elements of social emotional learning give children the tools to become resilient and persistent in life. The work that our teachers and administrators do to cultivate nurturing, supportive, collaborative environments for students to succeed go directly to this learning domain. I wish I could see evidence of the district recognizing and supporting this need for the students. The teachers tried to support the students and they were told they couldn't. The district has a responsibility to develop a larger strategy to address this learning domain to help all of our students. If our students plan to live in any major city in the United States or anywhere in the world, they will need tools to live among these ideas. They will not be able to hide from them or push them away. We need to prepare our students to live outside the bubble so they can have the best opportunity for success. Being able to interact well with ideas that are different than theirs is exactly part of the education we should be striving to create for the students. If Dublin wants to stay relevant in 2020, the district cannot hide behind outdated policies. Please don't let your students down. Help them be ready to join the world. The second comment is from Jaron Terry, also from Dublin. Dear persons concerned about diversity, equity, and inclusion in Dublin, Ohio. I've lived in Dublin for 1 year and love the community. I was encouraged that my husband and I made the right choice to move in moving to Dublin when I was asked to speak in January 2020 at PERC, Parents Encouraging Responsible Choices on LGBTQ Issues and Conversations in Dublin City Schools, as a representative of PFLAG Columbus, of which I'm a volunteer president. This told me that Dublin City Schools cares about children and teens, all of them, not just the straight cisgendered ones. However, I am outraged and dismayed to read on WBNS today that Dr. Todd Hoadley said some in Dublin think love is love encourages acts of pedophilia. Shame on him for not refuting that bigoted view in a public forum when given the opportunity. This phrase specifically refers to LGBTQ marriage, which was legalized in 2015. The phrase was popularized by Lin-Manuel Miranda upon accepting the Tony Award in 2016 for Hamilton. For an educator in 2020 to be ignorant of this fact, as well as the fact that pedophilia, which is listed in the Merrick Manual as a mental illness, is in any way related to LGBTQ persons is outrageous. Dr. Hoadley should be educated and, if uneducatable, dismissed from his post as the views he expressed in this news story, and therefore his continuing presence is damaging to children and this community. In my opinion, all of the phrases on the shirt represent the best family values anywhere. To say otherwise is cause for concern, as it sets an unfortunate example to all, especially for the next generation. Thank you, Jared Terry.
Rebecca, thank you for reminding me to go back and read the public commentary we've received so far. And I know we had somebody who mentioned we would like to have a point of sort of collection for the public to be able to share input for the advisory committee meetings. So Rebecca has agreed to help gather that information in advance of our meetings. And our intention would be to continue if we have to, as long as we have to hold the meeting in a virtual format, for us to provide space to read that commentary from the public. And then as a committee, then we can come back together in the future and figure out if we, how we want to respond to those pieces of commentary, or how that helps inform the direction and topics in front of us as an advisory committee. And so that brings us to our final point on the agenda for tonight, future meeting schedule. I hate to have to try to pin everyone down right now, especially after a very long meeting. So what I would suggest, if the group is in agreement, is that we will reach back out to the members of the committee in the next couple of days to get your feedback on today's meeting, and to start to consider what the right schedule is for us to get back together in the near future and continue our conversation. Certainly, as I have expressed to each of you individually as we have talked and through our communications preceding the meeting, if there are any questions or concerns, you do not have to hold them for this venue to reach out to any one of us here at the police department and ask those questions. Our commitment to you is we are now your resource to be able to learn as much as you want to know, and probably more than you ever thought you were going to hear from us as we share what we do, and you help inform what we need to be considering as we continue to, again, build connectivity to the community. So I just want to leave some space. Is there anyone who wanted to offer anything for the good of the order before we conclude today's meeting?
I have a couple of things I'd like to ask, Chief, just to the committee in general. Are there, in terms of scheduling the next meeting, are there days of the week that don't work for anybody? Because obviously we want as many people and everybody to be available as possible. And Wednesdays won't work for me. I'll just put that out there. But, you know, I don't know if anybody else has days that they're concerned about or would like to keep off limits for committee meeting. And then second, I'd like to ask if the documents that were shared with us as a committee tonight could be documents that we could also have in an email so that persons like myself can continue to build our folder on advisory committee materials.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Let me answer, I suppose, and I'll let everyone else get back to the days that maybe don't work. On the documents that we shared tonight, the PowerPoint on the department, I think, is a little too big to be able to share by email. The other documents on the goals is something I've shared in the past, but I can certainly share again after this meeting. The additional intention would be for us to connect to the meeting minutes, the documents we covered today in the meeting. So that you will be able to go to the website and review those again, to include the report we did not review today, but the principles of procedurally just policing from the Yale Law School, which we were going to review, or I would hope you would have an opportunity to review for future meetings. We will connect all of those documents to the website, so you can go to our website and look at those in the future, and any member of the public will be able to see those as well.
Okay, and also just with respect to the public comments that we might save time for and look at our next meeting, would it be possible maybe to just have those shared with us 2 days before the meeting, or, you know, if we're meeting on a Tuesday, whatever's collected by the Friday prior to the meeting, so that would be enough material for us to have an opportunity to look at before the meeting and then consider for discussion at whatever point it comes up or is scheduled on the agenda for the evening.
I think that's something we can absolutely do. I believe, and Rebecca can correct me if I'm wrong, the comments that came in, I think came in either today or just yesterday. We didn't have many, but between now, because we've had a public meeting, my guess is we will receive more over time, and that's something absolutely we can pick a point a couple of days before the meeting and share with the group, so that you are prepared to talk about anything we might need to as we read those comments as part of the meeting in the future, for, again, as long as we would have to continue in a virtual format. One of the things that I will reach out as things, again, as things evolve in the responsiveness to the pandemic, and we get guidance certainly from public health on when we can hold meetings in person, that piece on the public commentary will happen actually in person at an open meeting sometime in the future once we're all able to get together. But for right now, we can absolutely collect that and share that with the group.
Thank you.
Chief Page, I just wanted to say for the public comments, I want to thank them for their comments. I was following the Board of Education meeting yesterday, and I was also on the same page with the people who were commenting. And I think that all of these are intertwined. Our youth are intertwined with the future of the society and the future of this police department. So I am fully in support of getting the Board of Education involved, getting City Council involved, getting as many members of this community involved, and making sure that we look at every issue. Even though we may not be able to solve every issue, we need to look at it and we need to address it. And that includes things that happens with the Board of Education too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the group for the good of the order? The last member, before we close the meeting, I just want to thank Becky Metcalf, who you see on the screen, has been, she is our admin assistant. She has been collecting the notes for the meeting. She is going to consolidate, and we will actually put the meeting minutes and notes out as part of that reflection of our meeting on the website as well. So we will make sure once we have all that collected, including the documentation, we send you all the link. That way you can share with whoever you would like to again, continue to solicit input from the community and to continue to help us connect to any members of our community or beyond who have interest in our conversations. That's all. I want to thank you all again for joining this first meeting. Thank you for sticking with us through a very long first meeting, but I look forward to everything we're going to continue to do together as we move forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Have a good evening.
Chief.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody.